And good morning again, everybody. Saturday, March 28, 2026. And after those last couple of days of weather, this is amazing. Warmer day, 80, and tomorrow, Sunday, 81, and Monday, 82. And sitting in studio with me, as always, is Deborah and Jonathan Flora. And I want to do this. Please say good morning and welcome back to the show, Jim Pfaff. Hey, Jim, I think you know Deborah and Jonathan, and welcome back. Yeah, man, welcome back to the show. Good morning.
Hey there,
Good
Jim.
morning. Hey, it's always, how you doing, Deborah? Good to see you. It's always great to be on with Peter Boyles in my adopted home state of Colorado that I'm missing so badly.
Talk about how when the first time you did the show, we realized that I knew you and what the work that you did here. Talk about that.
Well, I ended up in Colorado in 2005 when I was hired by Focus on the Family. And which a year later, Peter, as you recall, led to the interesting circumstances. I was running the marriage amendment in Colorado, and you were revealing some very interesting information about a very prominent pastor at the time.
Ted Haggard.
That was
Ted Haggard.
Yep, Ted Haggard, and he was the bane of our existence in that thing, to be candid. But that, so I was involved there. I ended up I founded the Americans for Prosperity chapter in Colorado. After that, and I was on the radio on KLZ daily for 4 years, and of course we've had I worked for Pat Neville when he was a minority leader of the House, so you and I go way back, and I just love the chance of being with you ever, and I have so much respect for you and what you've done through the years for Colorado.
For the folks that we're talking about, highlights and lowlights of talk radio history. Talk about Haggard, and what's he doing now, by the way, because I don't know.
I have not kept up with him for a lot of years, but shortly thereafter, he tried to make a comeback and start a small church down in the Springs.
Yes, he did.
And it just didn't really go anywhere. The thing that got most to me, and to my heart when I saw what was going on there, is the look just of, horror on his family's face when he was forcing himself back into the media as he had such horrible revelations that you were right to expose, to be candid.
Well,
and his kids, the look on the face of his kids, I'll never forget that picture of him sitting in his car and his wife and his kids having to have some media person take a picture of them as they're going right through the worst of it.
And that was Channel 9. And I remember that so well. And Mike Jones was a male prostitute. He no longer is plying the trade, but he came to me, and I was doing mornings on KHOW, and he said, and he started to tell the story, and he said, nobody wants to talk to me. I said, come on, I'll talk to you. And the way I figured it out, Sherlock Holmes, that Pastor Haggard's middle name is Ted, and his trick name was Ted. And Mike Jones was watching evangelical television, and he saw Haggard, and he went, wait a minute, that guy's one of my customers. And that's how that story got off. And it was really weird because yes, go ahead.
I was going to say, the day that you did that, the first program you had with him, I was down in the Springs at a coffee shop going to be meeting with, you might remember the name John Paul. He was the guy I had
quite well.
As campaign manager. I think he was on your show a few times.
Oh, absolutely.
And then Jim Banks, current Senator Jim Banks.
Yeah.
So the three of us were meeting at a coffee shop down in the Springs. And John Paul calls me, and he says, hey, you got to turn on the radio, dude. So anyway, Jim and I are sitting there, and I pull up the iHeart app or whatever it was at the time, and we're listening to it, and, face palm. But, we were talking about it, and I said, we were speculating, are we going to lose the marriage amendment because of this? And, the thing that I said is, I don't think it's going to happen because of the ick factor. Like it's like people were so that we had worked with were so charged up about the issue and concerned about it that I didn't feel like we were going to lose it, and we passed the marriage amendment with nearly 60% of the vote, including a 60% vote down in Pueblo County, and then 53% no vote on that domestic partnership referendum.
No, I remember it, because having gone through it, and Jerry Bell was the news director for KHOW and KOA and everybody together, and JB and I were close, and he was friends with the folks at Focus, and they were mad at me because during the Ramseys, we did a bumper sticker, and it wasn't intended to make anybody mad, but it said "Focus on," and I did a little carrot, the Ramsey family. And we were, well, they didn't think it was funny down there, but I thought it was great. And so then JB.
By the way, I was down there, but go ahead.
When that happened, well, when JB goes down, and I don't know who he met with, but somebody that was significant in Focus, and they denied it. The initial was, it isn't true. So I'm someplace wherever I was, and my phone rings, and it's Jerry, and Jerry said, "Are you sure you're right?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm real sure." And he said, "How sure?" And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because Focus said it isn't true." And I said, "Okay, now it's going to get good. Here we go again," one of those, talk radio moments. And then about 15 minutes later, Jerry called me, and he said, "Peter, you're right." And I said, "How do you know?" He said, "To the credit of Focus, they said it's true." That, and I don't know if Haggard came in and gave it up or how they figured it out, but
when I was listening to your radio show that day, I was convinced it was true. I'm going to tell you why I was convinced it was true internally, because we were working on this whole thing, and our goal was not just to have a definition of marriage, but also to say that you couldn't actually implement, like put stronger language in it. And Ted didn't want to do that. And he felt it went too far. And I didn't know then what we found out later, but combination of what you said and that was a real tip to me that it had to be right. Now, of course, we had to let it play out for a few days, and you had subsequent programs that showed it more clearly. But
two other things spun out of that. And this is what we're talking about writing. I'm talking with the guys off the air, but Pat Sullivan and Matthew Shepard spun out of that because Mike Jones bought meth. The only guy that really ever went to jail on the back of any of this certainly wasn't Pat Sullivan, but was the meth dealer. And we know that there's a book called The Book of Matt, that Matthew Shepard was not who Matthew Shepard is portrayed as, the gay angel. He was probably HIV positive. He had probably molested some kids. He was muling dope, and one of the two who killed him was his lover. And then Pat Sullivan, who I think is probably good for two people, they all bought their meth from the same dealer in Denver. And Matt Shepard was taking it to Wyoming. Pat was giving it to little boys or young men. And that was purchased. Haggard, that was one of Haggard's requirements, was he wanted Mike to buy him coke or to buy him meth. And boy, when that blew up, there were people that were very angry at me because we were sort of the epicenter of all those stories. And the final part of it is, and then I'll shut up and move on. But when I said to Mike, I said, you got to take, and I know he's listening this morning. He's a good man. And Mike went out, and they say go on the box. He went on the lie detector, and I had friends at Aurora PD that gave him a lie detector test, and they brought him back into me, and I said, "How do you do?" He wasn't telling the truth about the drugs, and so he failed that tail end of it. But other than that. And in fact, when those guys said it was true, it was like I knew we were right going into that story because the only times that I looked at the phone records, and the only times that Haggard would call, he called from the airport. Every one of his phone calls to Mike Jones was from the airport, pay phones. But that was an insane story.
Well, listen, as a practicing follower of Christ, a follower of the way, I think everyone needs to recognize And this is actually an important lesson, I think, for our country as a whole as we watch all that takes place. I say this all the time. 6,000 years of recorded human history proves the moral depravity of mankind. I mean, how can we come to any other conclusion that at various levels and in various degrees we all fail? The reason for limited government, which you and I strongly believe in, is because of these errors in human nature that need a check. And if we can hold it in check by not giving government too much power, then we do much better in the long run. And as all these stories go along in various people's lives, they happen and they pay the consequence or reap the benefits of good decisions all by themselves, rather than having to have government adjudicate all these things. And so when we go through these political hypocrisies that take place, that's the thing we've got to remember. Political hypocrisy isn't the I got you against that person as a primary consideration. That may be part of it all if that person's doing something wrong in particular. But the real gotcha is, let's just remember, when we give these people power, they abuse it. And we need to limit that. And that's a protection for any nation, and it's why we became a great nation, because for most of our 250-year history, we were really good at that. We're struggling with it now, I think, but we were doing really good with it.
Remember what Haggard was doing? He was consulting George W. Bush on issues of gay men, and himself. I don't know if he's gay or straight or bi or whatever he is. It doesn't matter, but the gay guys were not particularly fond of him. I know that, and then. But I also watched when the book was done, the Book of Matt. The guy who wrote the book is himself gay and was an investigator. The gay community turned on him with shovels, and all he did was tell the truth about Matt Shepard. So, the truth isn't any universally held by anybody. But I witnessed both things happen, and of course Pat Sullivan, who was adjudicated in the Justice Center with his name on the door, and that was just a really highlight moment. And I covered that, and Pat was not a big fan of me either. But when the whatever that judge was said, Mr. Sullivan, he said, you don't have to take this deal, and I thought to myself, it's like offering me the $10 million lotto ticket winner and saying, Mr. Boyles, you don't have to take this ticket. And remember, he walked out. He went scot-free, and everybody went scot-free because the people that must, and this to your point about corruption, the people who must have been involved, and I don't think the Pat Sullivan story has never been told straight, and I don't even know if he's still alive. He may be gone, but they were doing stuff, and I think he's good for a couple of murders, but they were all interconnected, and that was the part that I saw was, you had to weed and seed to try and find whatever the truth was in in those stories.
And that's your heritage in the Denver area, because you did that, always have done that so well, and the net positive of that cannot be understated. Yeah. You need people like you with courage to just kind of say the truth and find out what's really going on when it's important. And I've always appreciated that about you.
When you watch the bosses and hold their breath, we just had Patricia Calhoun on, who is going to retire now or not go to semi-retirement. And when they did the Roy Romer story, she and I did Roy Romer and B.J. Thornberry. That was one of those moments, and they all denied it too. And it's a great Tancredo story because Tancredo's on KOA openly talking about Roy Romer and B.J. Thornberry, and Lee Larson had to come in and do the cross your throat with your thumb, quit it. And he said, "How right are you?" And Tommy said, I got this. And I was on the air the next morning doing the morning show at KHOW, and they broke that story in the newspapers in Washington, D.C. They showed the pictures of Roy Kissinger. And it was like that scene in Goodfellas where Henry Hill's beating on the wall after they robbed Lufthansa. It was like Tancredo's
Yeah.
at home. All right, you did it, Jimmy. But so that was good talk radio stuff, and that's when we first met, and that was talk radio ain't that no more, but it certainly was then.
No,
it was a good time.
It sure was.
So what are we watching? I mean, we're talking with Deborah and Jonathan about what we're watching. I was asked that. It's a great question on air. What are we watching happen? What do you think? We'll start with you. Yeah.
Well, having spent 8 years on Capitol Hill as a chief of staff for a couple of different members, we're watching the bad part of what you and I are talking about in a more general sense. What John Thune just did yesterday is one of the most breathtaking things amongst many breathtaking things that I've seen in Washington, D.C. He's like, okay, we're going to fund the TSA agents. We're going to walk away from the ICE, and I'm not going to try to coordinate anything with my fellow Republican members over in the House. And he stirred up a bunch of bees. This is really one of the most, I'm just going to repeat, breathtaking things that I've ever watched. Because what's at the end of this? We pull back all the issues, and there are a lot of important issues related to the DHS funding. But when you rip all of this aside, what John Thune was taking care of yesterday was setting in place 2-week vacations for senators. I mean, that's literally what that was all about. So I was able to do it on a unanimous consent vote because everyone wanted to go home. And yet we sit back, the American people, dealing with both sides not getting their act together to get this funding in place. Of course, by the way, talk about power grabs. We shouldn't even have a TSA. TSA had nothing to do with 9/11, but that's what we were told. The security checkpoints that were run by and funded by the airlines at the time, they were the ones who were at fault. No, it was a government problem. But we blamed them, and then we federalized this, and it wouldn't even be an issue in our airports right now if we had not created the TSA. But putting that aside, the TSA stuff is right there. People are harmed by it, while a bunch of self-important members of Congress are fighting around for a political battle. And then they all decide, we're going to fight our political battle now, but hey, we need to take 2 weeks off, paid by you, of course, and then we'll come back and figure it out later, and it's never going to get solved.
We're close to a break, Jim. We're close to a break, but I watched that streaming of the congressional members who don't have to go through security, going down the side. Was that and everybody's in these waiting 2, 3, 4 hours, and these I understand that guys are sleeping in their cars that are working those jobs, and they're giving blood, and these guys just come strolling down.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Get on.
Delta Airlines is actually one of the first airlines to say, I'm sorry, if you're going to shut down our business, we're actually not going to give members of Congress that pass-through. Yep. That's really what needs to happen because, they're hired to represent Americans and the hardworking, people who have these industries as
Jim,
well.
Let me put you on hold. Kill mics, do this, do that. I'm Peter Boyles. You're listening 710 KNUS, Denver's talk station on a Saturday. Lines are open, 303-696-1971. Coming up, this guy's hat is in the ring. John Brooks is going to be with us. He's for Colorado's running for governor. He's a Republican, and he's like a semi-normal guy. So hold on your hat, 710 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyles. This is Denver's talk station. Stay here.
Your 710 KNUS forecast is Saturday, partly sunny and summery with highs around 80 degrees. Gusty winds up to 20 miles per hour. Increasing clouds and breezy tonight, lows down to 50. Sunshine and warm on Sunday, highs near 80. Weather brought to you by L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. For quick, trustworthy, and dependable service, call L&L Heating and Air Conditioning at 720-851-1691. Visit them online at bestdenverhvac.com. That's bestdenverhvac.com. You'll be comfortable with L&L. I'm day weather meteorologist Patrice Sutter in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
We have one line open, 303-696-1971. 80 to hide. No, 81 tomorrow and 82 on Monday. 710 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyles. In studio sitting with me is Jonathan Flora. Deb left on the line on hold. Jim Pfaff is with us, 303-696-1971. The resorts are shutting down. My copy was written in the middle of ski season. It says the snow is flying. Well, it's not anymore, but it is a wonderful time to upgrade. There's only one place to go, Larson Ski and Sports. See John Marriott, his son Jack, Paul, everybody, and get great pricing on new skis, new inventory. Trust me, the service is incredible. These are the guys. They got everything you need from top-tier performance skis and boards, best jackets and apparel. Everything is ready to go now, and I mean now. So whether you're a downhill demon, a powder hound, or an old guy, Larson's fit you perfectly. Forget those big box stores. Larson's staff offers expertise you need, incredible values. Stop in today. John Marriott, his son Jack, Peter Boyle sent you. You'll find them at the big wooden box store right here it is. You're westbound on I-70. Come to the Kipling exit. Get off on Kipling. Go down the ramp and make a left. Go underneath I-70. Come out the other side. Look to the right. See a big wooden box store right away. That's it. 7 days a week. Get your gear, get on the mountain, and have a great winter. Larson Ski and Sport, have a great spring or get a great deal. South of I-70 on Kipling, 7 days a week, 303-423-0654, 303-423-0654, or visit larsonsport.com, larsonsport.com, 303-423-0654. Our guest is Jim Pfaff on the phone. My partner is in studio, Jonathan Flora. Let's go to bring the call up if you would. This is Mark in Aurora. Mark, you're on a radio show. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
How's it going? Before we mention about the logjam in Washington, Deborah, did you ever work with Peter D'Aniello?
She's taken off because she's got a real life.
Oh, that's okay. No problem.
No, I didn't know her. I didn't know her.
That's an acting lady.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know her till she came here.
Okay.
All right, you're on.
Here's the deal. Everything's run now, unfortunately, by executive order. If I were Trump, I know they're waiting for a procedural application Monday to where basically the whole Senate can basically not object, and then they accept this proposal to fund it. But if not, just issue an executive order. You'll get this, Pete, right away. Issue an executive order that no check can be generated or signed after Monday until this is settled. The minute the defense contractors don't get their money, all these guys are owned by all these people. Trust me, they'll be in there Monday afternoon passing a bill. All of them, Democrat and Republican.
You stay on the line.
They're all on the take, Peter. They're all on the take.
Let's
freeze their money.
Stay there. Jim, how does this end? Jim Pfaff, how does this end?
Well, I think that's actually a decent idea. I mean, I heard. I know that, for example, I was just reading a similar situation. Minnesota will not give over the names of people who are on the SNAP program there, except that's a federal program. Well, then you just cut off their money. I think a lot of cutting off of money in Washington, D.C. is useful for this sort of thing. I don't know that Donald Trump can do it by executive order. I mean, he could certainly, push it through hard. Make it happen.
He can close up the parks department tomorrow.
These are kind of pinch points you put into a situation to move things in D.C., and we don't have enough of that. That is why people voted for Donald Trump, is they always felt that he could do a lot more of that sort of thing than what they're seeing right now. So it's some idea like that. Anytime you cut off people's money from federal government, first of all, if you do it permanently, you take away power from federal government, and then secondly, you get people to move. And I agree with all these things to say if you're a member of Congress and and there are federal employees not being paid because you're not passing the legislation, you shouldn't get paid either. They should not get special treatment around the TSA. And frankly, I'm almost at the point where I'm saying you shouldn't even get special treatment walking past the metal detectors on the Capitol, which they get to do because they're wearing their pin, as
Jonathan,
my former boss Thomas Massey calls it, my precious.
How's it end? So go to Jonathan. How's it end?
Well, we're looking at what things happen right now, and again, the American public are the one that are paying for all this. With the lines getting longer and longer, with Easter around the corner, there's still spring break going on. The world is unstable. Borders still matter, whether the Democrats want to talk about it or not. And what the Democrats are doing, they just keep moving the goalposts. I mean, first it was fund DHS with limits. Then it was restrict immigration and custom enforcement. Now it's no funding for ICE whatsoever. And when you're standing in line and listening to these people talk, they know who's really to blame. They keep moving the goalposts, but they've got to come together right now because the American public is fed up. I mean, when people are showing up at sunrise for a 12 o'clock noon flight, they're not going to take it much longer.
Let me go back to Mark in Aurora, the caller. Mark, what are you watching take place in this country?
Oh, as a whole?
Yeah. Your thoughts?
Well, I think to the world, Pete, with Iran and all the things going on and what our school system, what are we, 35th in the world? I think we're being, you talk about it as a failing empire. I would say we're being revealed as a socially bankrupt empire.
To Jim,
much the way the Greeks were.
Jim, what are we watching?
Well, I think that you are seeing the slow end of a corrosive period in American government that happened. It's really a post-World War II problem that we're seeing the back end of now, where we kept looking to government to try to figure things out. If it was a problem overseas, we sent people to war. If it was a problem domestically, we spent the money. And the thing is, you can't keep doing these things. But there's another problem. We are in a relativistic culture where we've allowed our politicians, but we've allowed our culture to not say, hey, there's some objective truth here and rules that we need to recognize, and particularly that we're accountable to God for that. And I think hopefully we can change that in our culture. But this is the source of the corrosion, I think, that allows these politicians to get by on both sides of the aisle, to get by with what they get by with.
Yeah, I agree, because they've jumped the rails. They've gotten to where they are not the leaders of our country. They are the servants of the people of our country. And that role has gotten reversed. And we've got to get back to listening to the people for the most part. Because right now, what they've done, and especially in this hijacking, the hijacking or holding people hostage, what they're standing for right now has nothing to do with policy other than defund ICE.
Yeah.
That's their sole objective.
But the reasoning,
and what scares me,
what's the reason to defund in their minds? Why don't they want a protected border?
We've been asking that question for 10 years, especially under the Biden administration.
Yeah, if anybody,
the easy answer is votes. You get all these folks in, and they're going to vote on the people that gave them a free home, which means when you have no borders, you have no sovereignty, you have no nation.
Mark, let me jump to Mark.
Back to Mark.
Tinkers to Evers. Mark, why aren't there elements in this country that do not want secure borders?
Well, I hate to say it, Pete, but the Democratic Party, the Democratic Party wants people beholden to them, just like they did with African Americans, just like they did with, 2 generations ago of people that first came across the border from the South. I mean, it's a game plan for them. Sadly,
let me throw a curveball. Let me throw a curveball.
Yeah.
One of the biggest advocates of open borders in the nation in modern era is the National Chamber of Commerce, which is a Republican organization. Seriously.
Yeah, I wouldn't join. I was offered to join and didn't do it 40 years ago. So, I wear that as a badge of courage.
But we were just talking. All this stuff has popped up about Cesar Chavez, and I'm a huge Cesar Chavez fan.
Yep.
But and it's one of Ronald Reagan's, I think, mistakes is that Reagan was. The big growers in California were Bud Antel and Iceberg and those big agribusinesses, and they broke the union. They broke the union by bringing in Braceros, and had they allowed for that union, it might have been differently. When I interviewed Chavez's brother, and they carried pockets full of dimes. They didn't have cell phones, and when they would see illegals in the fields, what cracks me up now to see advocates for illegal immigration marching, carrying the Black Eagle, because that wasn't Chavez, or it wasn't his brother. They were advocates to keep illegals out, because the illegals were scabs and they would break the union. And Reagan, and I'm a huge Reagan fan, but that was one of Reagan's mistakes. He allowed the union to be broken. And
he granted amnesty to 3 million.
Bingo. I was going to put that on there.
You know, here's the thing, Pete. I'm not talking about freezing the money, and I'm not talking about freezing the program. What I'm specifically, this is old world. You go down to the Treasury, turn all the computers off to where not one check can go out till this is solved. I guarantee you, Northrop Grumman, all these people that get money from the government every day, they will call those people and tell them you'll be out coming upcoming election. They'll get that settled in about 60 seconds. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You go executive order and you say, listen, the Democrats, when they were fighting on something, they shut the parks down.
Yep, they did.
Do you remember that?
Oh, sure.
Yep.
Pete, you got to go gangster on this thing. And I know he's got other things going on, but you got to quit playing the game. It's hijacked.
But let me throw something out here that I think is really important that we might be missing from what you said. If it is those people that will make sure that these problems stop, if it's the people receiving the money that make sure the problems stop, doesn't that kind of tell us we're kind of embedded with regulatory capture and private capture of government for the use of people? So I'm not trying to put down what you're suggesting. I think there's a lot of validity to that. But what I think we also have to understand is this thing is so huge, and the government controls so much of what we do that we're subject to it at every level of our lives. Go try to buy an incandescent bulb right now.
You can't.
See if you can do that. I just saw Andrew Huberman, the podcaster and health guru guy, talking about the fact that LED lights cause problems to the psyche that incandescent bulbs don't. And there's apparently science behind this. And I didn't see that, but that's just an example of where the government came in and say, no, we got to get rid of that stuff. Why? What's the purpose? So anyway, there is a very deep problem that we've got, fellas, with the entrenchment of government in our lives.
And I'll begin with you, Jim, and go back the other way. When can you put a date or a time or an event? I heard you say the end of the Second World War. And Joseph Heller said something happened. What happened? What happened?
I'll tell you what I think actually is the core of the modern problem that we're having with this. Because there's always problems with government. You remember Ronald Reagan said that politicians, politics is the world's oldest profession, and it's very second oldest profession. Has many characteristics of the oldest one. But I think really this sounds conspiratorial, less conspiratorial in these days than when I would say it. 1913. Federal Reserve,
taxes,
direct election to senators, and the income tax. Like these things expanded the capability of government to grab our money and to use it for things like going to war and doing all the other stuff that it does. And it didn't show up right away, but you get through FDR and the post-war period, and then by the time the Great Society came around, and it's in everything.
That's what I was going to say. Two pivots: Woodrow Wilson and FDR.
I'm an FDR fan as a great war leader. There's some interesting things. There's a really well-done book that I read when I was in grad school called The Soviet View of the American Past, and I've hunted for copies of it and I can't find it. It was a print in English. It was Russian, and they hated FDR. They said FDR saved capitalism, which I think there can be a case that that's true. Woodrow Wilson, however, brought the creature from Jekyll Island. He brought the graduated income tax. He put children back in factories. He segregated Washington, D.C. He did all kinds of the First World War. He did all of those things. And it's all true about Woodrow Wilson. And that jumping off point. But each and every time it's segmented. One of the greatest exploiters or expanders of Social Security, quote, rights was the Nixon administration. They blew things wide open. So is it that people want this, that we're headed to? I'm a big believer in the Frankfurt School, and I think a lot of you guys might be hip to reading about when they came to this country. And I hear people talk about Karl Marx on radio shows, and I think, did anybody ever read Marx? I mean, did you ever sit down and actually read what he said and what he writes about? Can you hang on? Let's see. Can everybody stay? Caller, you want to stay?
Yeah.
All right, everybody, put everybody on hold. All right, 303-696-1971. Coming up, I met this guy, John Brooks, and he's running for Colorado's governor's job as a Republican, and he's a normal fellow. 80 will be the high, 81 on Sunday, Monday 82. Hang on, everybody, 710 KNUS. Buddy Holly and the Crickets. That's from a John Wayne movie. John Wayne, The Searchers. I met the Crickets, and John Wayne in that, he always goes, well, that'll be the day. And Buddy Holly goes to the movies and sees John Wayne do that line, and he wrote that song. That'll be the day. Yeah, and the Amarillo by Morning Song and all those guys. And he was with me on a radio show, and I said, where'd you start to do that? He said, my grandma took me to pro wrestling in, where the hell were they? On Saturday nights. And he said, these three guys got in the ring and played at halftime. It was Buddy Holly and the Crickets at pro wrestling. And it was in Amarillo, I think. But
well, like earlier, we were talking about how bands got their names.
Yes.
You know, and you know how the band got their name.
The band.
Yeah.
No.
They were the backup to I'm drawing a complete
They were
blank.
Were they Bob Dylan's guys?
Yes,
right?
Bob Dylan's guys. He'd always say, and here's the band.
Here's the band, yeah.
And they'd just say, well, you know, well, let's just run with that.
I know that Marshall Tucker, before we eat up everything.
Right, you brought that up.
There is no such thing. There's no guy. There's no Marshall Tucker. And I thought there was.
And thanks for the Jonathan Edwards song from Athens, Ohio with Sunshine. I feel like we're back in the days of spinning vinyl. I've got that period.
Did you ever jock?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
On the line with... yes,
go ahead.
James? Jim, jump into this as we're wrapping it up. Jim Pfaff is with us. And Mark the caller, and then we got a guest coming on the other side.
I got to tell you, I was on the radio doing talk. I would love to have done music too, growing up and seeing that. The amazing. How about Leonard Skinner too? By the way, another band that's the name of someone that's
not a biopic. They've got to make a movie about Skinner.
I have a moment with that says it's the greatest knockoff band ever, but they play Sturgis every year, and the guy that owns the Chip is a member of the motorcycle club that I'm a member of, and I wanted to meet them, and I was going through a bad time, and there's a great song called Hank Williams, You Wrote My Life Story, about seriously, I mean, if you know Hank Williams' life, but it was Mo Bandy did it, and it was called Hank Williams, You Wrote My Life Story. Well, Leonard Skinner wrote mine, and I wanted to meet them, and I wasn't sure, and I asked if I could meet them, and he said, no, yeah, pretty much. He said, they're going to, yeah, sure. And what you don't know, the main stage there has a private seating, and you can sit and watch the acts play. And so here comes these tour buses, and there must have been 5 of them, and we're just, each one is like, I don't know, $6 million. And they got off, and I stand way away from everybody, and the guy said, he said, I want to bring somebody who wants to meet you. And the Van Zants, because his brother was killed in the plane crash.
So this was Ronnie.
Johnny Van Zant.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, anytime your lead guitar player is wearing a buck knife, you know, these are a serious band. And he brought me over and he said, this is Peter from Denver. And I said, I just wanted to thank you. I mean, that song, That Smell, and I wanted to know. I said, the rumor is that Freebird was, your brother wrote Freebird when Skydog Allman was killed, died on a chopper, and he said that's the rumor, and he let it go at that. And I said, I just want to tell you, and he hugged me, and I sitting around talked to him, and I'm going, man, the Van Zants. What a family that must have been.
Yeah.
You know, by the way, what's really great about that band when you think about it is that they weren't the top musical talent when they were trying to get up and going. They worked their butt off. Ronnie Van Zant, and sometimes in a very negative way, drove them into the ground with hard work to get them to where they were. It's a great American story of working your butt off to get to success, and huge success they had.
And Billy Powell. Probably one of the best keyboardists I have ever heard, live or recorded.
And you watch the Van Zants, and you think to yourself, really what they wanted to do was go bass fishing, and
Well, that's where I heard. That's how he wrote Freebird. He was fishing.
Yeah, I mean that's the story that that Skydog was killed, and I don't know if it's true.
Yeah, that little house by the lake.
They would
it'd be 112 degrees and humidity of 90%.
Yeah, but. I mean, even that. I mean, how many people have that played at their funeral? I mean, everybody.
Yeah.
But if you leave here tomorrow, you know. And is it? And they never told me whether it was or not about Skydog.
Well, and that smell, that was a warning song to a bandmate.
Oh, absolutely.
Total Rosington.
Oak tree in my way.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he has that line when he goes, you know, about they call you Prince Charming. They call me Prince Charming, kind of a thing. And he's talking about himself. And Seeger does that stuff too. This is good we're talking about this, but all the Seeger stuff and blow me away, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, you brought up Cass Elliot. I've got a fun little quick story if you want. I'm sitting in this room, and I don't really get starstruck. You know, they put on their pants like we all do. But I'm sitting at this room and talking to this English fella, and we're talking about the Magna Carta and all that exciting, gripping stuff. And then he introduces himself to the group, and it's Dave Mason.
Oh, man.
And I'm going, okay. So I start talking. I go, I'm sorry, I don't get starstruck, but I'm sitting next to Dave Mason, and I go, and I know a lot of people didn't like it, but that album you did with Mama Cass Elliot, it was actually pretty good. He goes, no, mate, that album sucked.
Did he really?
I go, okay, if that's what you feel, then I'll go with you.
Ooh. Yeah. All right. So let me try this week.
Let's go.
All right, Jim. Who's the first person that you ever met that so impressed you that you just had to sit there and look?
Well, you know, there are a few, and I've run across a few people. None of them are congressmen, by the way. I just want to let you know that.
We're on time,
and I've been around a lot of them.
Yeah.
You know, honestly, I have to tell you, Dr. James Dobson. I know that'll seem odd to a lot of people. Listen, he was really a great man. I was really impressed by his determination and focus on what he was doing, his clarity. He didn't go throw stuff off, or at least very rarely.
We're on time.
That was odd. People disagreed with him, but
all right, Jonathan.
Yeah, I don't know who one of the first would be. That would be something. But like Deborah said, we've got this really Forrest Gump life where we've met so many people that are incredible people. But again, one of the ones that marked me the most was Gary Sinise.
There you go.
Again, with all the celebrity status, when culture says you can be an idiot, he chooses not to, and he serves with our firefighters and our veterans the way that he does.
Mine was Steve Allen. When I first got into radio, was working with Bob Lake.
Oh, man, I'd have loved to have met Steve Allen.
He was appearing at Elitch's. Here he came in a smoking jacket for the morning show in a limo, real quick. So the old man, I'm a rookie, but I got a hit show. And the old man said, Steve, he said, tell the kid. He said, be nice to everybody on the way up because you're going to meet them on the way down.
Right,
Steve Allen said, he used a word that began with B, and he said, on the way down, it's a whole different class of people.
That's interesting.
That's my Steve Allen story.
But you did remind me. I think one of the first big names that I met, I was working with a radio station at our university, was I got to interview John Glenn.
Ooh.
When he was an official with Ohio.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and that was something. He was very cool.
Second. Who was the second one, Jim? Everybody's in the back of their head. Who do you got?
Oh gosh, you know, I interviewed Coach Bill McCartney on my radio show on KLZ. Man, what a great guy! That was really fun.
He was we got to meet so many guys. You think about it.
Yeah.
You know.
And
I met him shooting an infomercial at the football field.
Yeah.
A prince. He's a prince. He was a prince. He was a smart guy too. Very excellent.
Yeah, all of those guys. I mean, where did they come from? I don't know.
Yeah.
But you get a chance to meet them, and you're in the business, and they're who they are, man.
Look who I get to partner with every Saturday morning.
Me and you, yeah, and him, Jim. Listen, we're coming up on time. We got a guy. Keep an eye on this guy. To Jim, the guy's name is John Brooks, and he's running for Colorado governor. I was at the job here, and I meet him, and he's like a normal guy. He says, in the Republican Party in Colorado. Are you kidding me? So
yeah.
Absolutely.
You and I have been through that ringer for years.
Oh, the guy's a unicorn. I mean, what are you doing here? But he's a very cool guy, and we're going to put him on the air for a couple minutes. Then we'll go into open lines and do some stuff. Jim, take care of yourself, man. Happy Easter. Take care, and we'll be together real soon.
Yeah, God bless you, Jim. Good
Thanks,
to see you.
Peter. Great to be with you guys.
Too, man. Be safe.
Tell Deborah I said hi.
I sure will.
All right, so everybody coming up, as I said, I was here cutting a promo, and this guy's John Brooks, and the guy's helping him with his campaign, I knew. And so we ended up sitting out there on the other side of the wall and talking. And I went, well, how the hell did you get into this? And he's like a normal guy, and I want you to hear him. So he's coming up, and then open lines. Stay here.